Uh, my name is Brittany Sweeney. I am with Barron County Adult Education. Um, and I will call on Roberta. Did you all
Hi,
hear
I'm
me?
Roberta. Yep,
Okay.
I could hear you. Sorry, I was trying to get my stuff unmuted. I am Roberta Bradley. I am the DVOP with the Kentucky Career Center, and I will call on Miss Deronda.
I love it.
You might be on the phone.
Yeah, Deronda has actually been on hold for over an hour now, or been dealing with, so we'll come back to Deronda. Let's do
Okay.
Amy. Amy Tollison. Sorry, there's two Amy's. Okay, Amy's with the Mary Wood Wilden Memorial Library. Good morning. All right, Amy Thomas.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Amy Thomas. I'm the adult ed instructor and college and career navigator. I also teach at our jail.
All right, who needs to introduce themselves next, Amy?
How about Deronda?
Yeah, Deronda's on a phone call, so I don't know that she'll be able to, but let's do Roxana. You just did in the chat, so if you could come unmuted and say who you are.
That works.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Roxana Robinson. I'm with Vocational Rehabilitation.
All right, let's do Matt.
Hey, Matt Bacon from Career Team. And if Priscilla has not gone yet, I'll pick Priscilla.
I have already gone and
No.
looking down through here. Roberta Bradley, maybe not, or
Yep.
Hannah Kiefer.
There we go. There's a new one. Hannah, can you come on mute and introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Hannah Kiefer. I am the Justice Program Administrator for Department of Corrections Reentry Division.
All right, welcome. I saw Fabio for a minute too, but I think he's already introduced himself. That's great, Matt. It shows Fabio as soon as you connect before you put your camera on. All right, well, we'll do the roomies next. And so I will let Jessica go first.
I'm Jessica Calvert, and I'm with South Central Workforce Development Board.
Shannon Gotke with Career Team. Frank Carabano, the one-stop operator.
TJ Shockley Hunt with ICTC, and I guess I should say the Workforce Board member for 3 terms. I'm on my 3rd term, so
Nice.
again, part of the furniture. Evan?
I'm Kevin Ballard. I'm new on the Workforce Solutions Board here at SkyCTC.
I guess I'll go next. My name is Mark Hamilton. I work with Veterans Upward Bound, which is a TRIO program under the Department of Education, and we help veterans transition and get into 2, 4 industry certificate degrees on the WKU campus, and we also really help out a lot with Sky as well.
Yes.
I'm John Stazak. I'm with WKU and the Workforce Development Board.
All right.
Good morning, John Swords. I'm with the Workforce Development Board as well.
Jake Brown with Career Team.
Diane Patterson with the Simpson County Literacy Center.
All right. Good morning. I'm glad to have everybody. Thank you guys for joining. And I'm Brian Becker with the Workforce Development Board. I don't have my camera on because we were having lag here in the office. So if you guys can't hear us well, somebody please say it in the chat or just unmute, because apparently the 9:30 mothership is passing overhead. All right, we want to give an opportunity, as we normally do, to let partners share news. Frank has been hitting us up with a lot of emails, so we know that it's great. I always encourage people to share and not wait for these monthly meetings when you have news and announcements. But a few of the things that Frank has already sent out, I will be showing on the screen here. But this is just a chance we want to toss up anything that hasn't already been blasted out to anybody or that's coming up that we need to be aware of.
correction on that, one of those that I sent out on the AMPED Technology Workforce Training. The correction is, it came from DVOP in Louisville through our DVOP here at the Kentucky Career Center, and the correction is it's Roberta Bradley, not Robert Bradley. There she is. Sometimes we forget that A of Roberta. But
we gotta get this audit done, so Matt can get it turned in.
questions concerning that could probably be directed, there's a phone number on that flyer, or if you have any other questions, I would direct them to roberta.bradley@ky.gov. She's in the Career Center here in Bowling Green.
All right. Breaking news, Denise McDonald has joined the meeting, and so has Jody Johnson. So good morning, ladies. All right, who wants to go next?
Brian, quickly, I wanted to make mention of our August 22nd job fair happening in Hart County. So that'll be our next installment of Talent Tuesday. So you'll see it there on the screen there. So we'll be having it at the public library in Horse Cave. So if you are a partner and in that area, please share that flyer if you don't mind. We'd love to have as many participants there as possible. We're still recruiting businesses as well. So if you know a business that's interested, you can find, I think our email is on that flyer, maybe not.
Yes, at the bottom.
It's at the bottom there. So you'll see that email at the bottom. Please email that should you have any businesses or participants interested, and we'll collect that information. Thank you.
Jake, do you want to share who is in the picture with you on this particular flyer? I can see your likeness, but is there another person's likeness that a keen eye might spot?
I can't even see it from here.
Oh. So Leslie is not on the call, and we miss Leslie not being able to join, but for anybody who follows us on social media, we have shared this before, so I don't think it's a secret, but it is a secret when it happens. That is Jason Bateman in the background. So she has figured out a way, often on some of our promotional materials, to work Jason Bateman's likeness into the crowd. So that's him stepping there, checking his phone as he's walking away in the same top left photo that Jake is in. So
Or she'll put it right on my face.
or sometimes she has, yeah, deep fake Jake's head with Jason Bateman's face. So again, just a playfulness and to break some of the monotony. So of all the flyers. Anybody else have news, updates, events going on?
I'd like to just add that we just announced that we are holding a forklift training, forklift certification, and I believe they just sent the flyer over. Yes, so I just wanted to bring everyone's attention to that. I believe it's August 23rd, and I believe we only have like 6 slots at a time.
Wow.
So if there's anyone interested, or you have any clients interested, please reach out to us.
Okay.
Sooner rather than later, so that we can try to accommodate them.
And then where will that take place at?
That will take place at Sky CTC.
Here in Bowling Green?
Yes.
Okay.
In Bowling Green. Yes, at the main campus.
Okay.
And then, as always, we're still taking applications for our CDL program. And we are just rocking and rolling with that program, as you well know. So just to let you know that as well.
Great.
What's the cost of it?
$250.
I think it's either a 6 or an 8 hour course.
Yes, I believe it's 8.
Okay.
I like the price of that.
And it's hands-on. I mean, we have the forklift, and we have them in a big bay over there at the campus, and they get a really good training out of it. So yes.
And we have sent people through WIOA funding to do that in the past.
Yes.
So that does qualify if the person qualifies.
Yes.
Yeah.
Then
So.
particularly for job corps students.
Yes. Yes.
Big thing is just be aware that right as of this morning, we had 6 slots. So if you have one or more and if you have a whole lot that want it, we could set up a second class at some point. But right now we have 6. So
Okay.
Hopefully that may not be enough.
Yeah. Denise has shared that they're doing a ribbon cutting and an open house on August 18th at noon for their new addition. All right, that's exciting. Has that something Frank has sent out? I think I've seen that, but that might just be because I am
I don't
connected.
think I've sent it to Frank, but I will do that this morning when I get to the office.
Okay,
What you probably saw was a ribbon cutting at the Goodwill location. for Goodwill.
oh, okay, okay. Well, I'll share a couple of other things. So we have our New American Job and Education Fair targeting New Americans, which is scheduled for August 24th. This year will happen at Living Hope. We're doing the event 3 months earlier than we did it. So it was just November when we did it. It feels like it's been like 6 months or less ago, but a lot of partners involved in helping with this. We will be notifying the employers who applied. So we've kind of pre-screened the employers, but we'll be notifying them today. To let them know one way or the other, but there's several of you, several community partners serving refugees and immigrants that will be at that, and so just help us to get the word out, because what we've learned, and Anna's on vacation this week, but there's several factors that happen when you're trying to connect New Americans to job opportunities. One, you got to have resources to support that they understand what's going on. And so we do have interpreters available on site. Second, you've got to be able to promote just immediate job opportunities that they can immediately access. So in the past, there's been employers that, oh, you know, if you go to college or if you have advanced English, like we need employers that can hire them where they are at right now today and help make upward mobility possible. So that's what we're aiming for. And of course, the other thing is that local meaning within our workforce board region, the Brad area. So we shut the door to the other applicants that operate outside of the 10 counties because they have been very successful at getting New Americans employed. And so we're trying to promote the local flavor and like you see in the top left, spend more time enjoying time with friends and family than being on the road. So that's coming up. We do have a Facebook page for that. So if you connect to our board social media, you can connect to that. We also want to promote the Goodwill Industries expungement clinic. Again, something that Frank has sent out. You can see there it's capped at 50 participants. There is a requirement to RSVP. It does say in kind of small font, but it's in orange there that to RSVP, but right above that, walk-ins will not be accepted that day. So it's going on in Morgantown. So I bet Amy is very involved, Amy Thomas, and a lot of the partners there with helping with that and drive traffic to it. But I'm sure Goodwill would appreciate it. You've got somebody. I don't think that it's limited to people that are Morgantown or Butler County residents. It's just happening to be located there. I don't know that we've had an expungement event that's happened outside of Bowling Green or Glasgow before. So is anybody else? When I saw it come through, I was like, okay, this is great. So it's good to see it get out in another part of the region. So I applaud Goodwill for that. Also related to helping people with recovery and justice involvement, there's the Freedom Through Recovery Rally. This is something that the Southern Kentucky Reentry Council heads up each year. They've done it for a number of years at Circus Square Park, and that's going to be in September. So just another date. It's a Saturday there to get on your calendars, and they make it a fun, festive event. Starts to be a lot going on in the fall in Bowling Green, and I remember that day last year or 2 years ago, there were other things going on, but it's a big deal. And then we will also have a big multi-employer hiring event at the Bowling Green Career Center in September. So there's a lot going on here in the next 6 weeks. So this is not anything that requires pre-registration. We are going to have more employers potentially than the ones listed. But we have, I think, 16 or so at the moment that we reported on Monday at a staff meeting. So, but we are encouraging people to bring a resume and bring an ID and trying to get interviews to happen on the spot. So. All right, and as always, follow us on social media to stay on top of these and other events. I feel like a newscaster now. All right, we're going to jump into the topic for the month. So we've got Josh in an action pose here. Josh is probably, have you been to a partner team meeting before?
No,
I don't think you have. So just a quick intro on Josh. He's been with us since November, and he is a WKU employee, but he gets to report to me as well. But WKU wrote a grant last year, and John was very instrumental in making an arrangement with WKU the Innovation Campus for Josh to secure an office space over there. So it's literally across the street from us. But he is laser focused on data analytics and reasons why people are not working. And we have been doing presentations all across the region. There's only a couple of counties we haven't been to yet and presented data, but we are, yeah, Simpson is one of them. But just so you guys know, we've kind of explained this before, I think elsewhere. We and many of you guys know, we used to do these summits every fall, and we would have great speakers, great topics, great discussion, but very few employers would come. And of course, we all represent employers. We're all employed people, and some of us can make hiring decisions, but we really wanted to get the small business, the mid-size, the large businesses to come and hear. And it's like, help us help you, the Jerry Maguire stuff, right? And it was very, very difficult. So we started to say, you know, what we can probably do is just only invite employers to things and see if they will come out and say it's just for them. Because you guys know, and Amy, it was a lot like this when we came to Butler County. We're preaching to the choir when we want to be preaching to the employers that can most benefit from the information and the resources that we share. So we have been doing that, but what we've been doing is kind of three things. We've been presenting who is not working by county. So in the county that we go to, if it was Butler, we're talking about who's not working in Butler County. It'd be great if people moved to Butler County and could come in and fill jobs, but what about the people that already have an address there and are not working? How do we tap into them? How do we keep them in the workforce? And then we are talking about generational factors and things that influence people wanting to work and staying in the workforce by generation. And then other pockets, and we'll get into some of that here in a moment. And then we're also giving them tips on how to do a job fair, how to do flyers. You would think this stuff is kind of common sense, but Jake and Bianca, we're like that insurance company. We know a few things because we've seen a few things. And that's how we kind of present it is, here's how not to do a job fair. Here's how not to do a flyer. And hopefully encouraging that they can help themselves, these employers, with their own tactics and that sort of self-sabotage things that are going on. So Josh, what else would you say about yourself and your position before we get into the presentation?
Yeah, so I mean, you covered like quite a bit there, but yeah, like the real core of it all is kind of like this research and development, especially for like this South Central region. Over at WKU, they like to call it the region north of Nashville, to like put that little spin on it and say like, oh, maybe we're a cool city too. But so a lot of it is just kind of like getting into how do we like develop this area around here. And there's a lot of like really cool ideas that are floating around that we're trying to implement. And behind a lot of that, like you've got to know what's going on at the bottom. So like I think this data is like a really good bedrock to start building things on. But yeah, so
all right, we'll jump into the presentation.
Yeah. And as we go, you know, I love discussion and stuff. So like if anyone ever has like a question or a comment, or you're just getting tired of hearing my voice, please jump in and just, you know, add to it and everything. But yeah, so we're going to focus on all like that data and stuff today. So kind of thought it prudent to like break down the different types of data or these different like categories that we can really get into. We're going to get into some examples of all three of these, but just kind of like as an overview, we can go and drill down and get some county level data. It's available to an extent. We can get, like you can see here, these certain categories like age, education, disability, parenthood, and then there's like a lot of other factors that we can get. We use the American Community Survey that comes from the US Census, and they provide all of this data kind of at the county level, but not overlapping with each other. Like I can tell you how many 45 to 59-year-olds there are in Logan County, but how many of those people have a disability or don't have a high school diploma, that information isn't like readily available within that data to just like overlap. And we're going to get into some stuff later where we can talk about like how we can overlap it. But this is some of like the easiest stuff that we can just go in and kind of grab and then send out is if you want each of these like little demographic things just on their own, that data is just kind of readily available from the Census Bureau. And that's what makes it really cool is it's at the county level and it's pretty easy to get. Then we can do qualitative data. So if you spend enough time on the internet, like reading or getting to articles or getting to studies, WKU has a really big database of like papers and academic findings and things like that. You can learn almost anything you want kind of like about the world, and then you can start making a lot of inferences on like actions that you can take going forward. So we can look at, I've used Pew Research, WKU's articles, even some academic papers from UK and the Economic Policy Institute. There's some really like enlightening stuff in there. And then kind of like at the big regional level, and what I mean by the big regional level is kind of the Census Bureau can break down these larger regions that they call PUMAs, public use microdata areas. And there is where you can overlap all of this data and all of this information. So there's two that are kind of applicable to us. So there is a PUMA for Warren County alone. So we can kind of pull that own county as its own thing. And then the 9 other counties in the South Central region of Kentucky count as one other PUMA, and that's the BRAD. So with that microdata, there are a ton, like a massive list of factors that we can pull, and just demographic information, all sorts of things, and we can overlap that. Like with that data, I can tell you how many people 45 years old have a disability are not in the workforce. So that stuff is kind of cool, and we'll get into that a little bit more during the examples. But yeah, let's start getting into those. So is anyone from Allen County? Lucky you, because we're gonna have a little sneak peek of some county level data that we can pull from like at the county level. So this is kind of the raw data that we get. This is just numbers. And this is actually just a little snapshot of some of the demographics that come from the Census Bureau. So we can break it down into all of these little age ranges here. And then we can get each of these groups' workforce participation rates. And so we can just kind of multiply across and say like how many people 30 to 34 in Allen County are not in the workforce? 332. And now you've got like a good target if you're really interested in that group of people, like in that age range or whatever. You can really look at how many people you can feasibly target there. And then we can take some of these numbers, and what I like to do, especially for these presentations that Brian was talking about earlier, is compare each group's rate to the national average to see how far off they are. And then the groups with the largest disparity between themselves in their county and the national average, and then have a large amount of people, we kind of pull them as like these key data pockets to be able to say like these are people that we can kind of focus on. So if we want to go on to the next slide here.
Well, I was just going to ask, sometimes what we do, we don't necessarily do it in the presentations at this point, but just to get you guys' feedback on in the room and online, what stands out, what's surprising to see right here with what's been displayed so far, especially about who's not working? Does it confirm some things? Does it like blow your mind, or?
One of the things I've noticed looking at the numbers is the 25 to 29s has an 18% not working, and the 35 to 44 has a 16%, very close, but that intermediate, that 30 to 34 jumps as much as 10%. And just that jumps out as curious to me why that middle 5-year group is not working.
So what may be common about people in their late
Early
20s and early 30s? What do you think could be going on there?
Men and women.
Yeah.
School diploma. I mean, I don't know if that crosses over, I guess.
Not having a high school diploma?
Right, not having a high school.
It's like entry level jobs.
Raising children.
Yep, that's, yeah.
Could be.
So if you probably don't, you may not have school age children yet. Maybe preschool or babies, yep. And that can happen in the mid-20s too, but if it hasn't happened by then, it usually happens by the 30s, so.
This is an example of what Josh was talking about. This is just raw data and we don't know the factors with each one of these, but what he's gonna get to is how to start overlaying some other data, and make some inferences to drill down on what those factors might be per group. Which I think he'll get to.
Yeah, that's gotta be especially frustrating for adult ed. I mean, if you've got this 51% of the people.
I suspect for the, without high school diploma, those are probably folks that are over 50. Because we generally don't graduate. There's a very high graduation rate that occurs these days and has been for a while now, so.
Well, and wouldn't people in agriculture possibly qualify themselves as not in the workforce, you think? Farmers, what would they?
Yeah. So.
What would their answer be, you know, if asked?
Right, that's another kind of like big issue is like, and that's a really good question, because the answer is like, it depends. There's plenty of people who aren't in the workforce, but they're working. People who are like, if it's just someone on a farm and they're getting paid under the table, just to like avoid the government and taxes or whatever. They're not gonna tell you, yeah. If you're doing some sort of illegal activity to make money, you're definitely not gonna tell people.
But
So
if it's a
there's-
farmer that's got a registered business, they are counted.
Yes. But there's probably a big kind of like underground workforce that's like not captured in these numbers. And that's a really, especially like if you were gonna go and survey them, you're asking like, hey, are you committing tax fraud? Would you like to share that with me? And the answer will probably be no.
Get off the property is what your first thing. Let me add a little bit to that. It's not just that. It's also, what's also not captured right now is gig economy.
That too.
Right? That's very difficult to understand is there are gig jobs, there are people in remote work. So there might be people in Allen County that are working for a company in Indiana remotely.
Right.
It's not going to show up as somebody working, you know, you're not going to see that collected up in tax data. And so that's very difficult to measure. So we always begin the presentations minus today with the numbers are imperfect.
Yes.
But they're good enough for us to get a feel for what's going on and to take some type of action towards it.
And I think I was a little bit shocked at the 59.31% of 16 to 19-year-olds who aren't working.
Yeah. And
does this take into consideration part-time work? Is it only full-time?
This is part-time as well. Like you'll be in there, but if
that's a really high number of 16 to 19-year-olds.
You know what? TJ, you're pointing out something that this comes up in a lot of our conversations.
It's huge.
Culturally, today, we don't have a lot of teenagers working. As parents, it's not being encouraged very well. Where there's a lot of focus, I think, on academics. There's a lot of focus on playing sports year round. Work ethic. But
not in my house, I'm gonna tell you now.
Either, but I mean, we had a school superintendent point out over a year ago, almost 2 years, he said, listen, I used to drive around this town and see my kids everywhere. But if you pay attention, retail, fast food, it's mostly older adults working there.
Lawn mowing, all those jobs.
Yeah.
Part of that is interesting to me that I know a lot of young people who are looking for a job in our smaller counties, specifically Simpson, but I was thinking about Allen, there's just not a lot of choices. There's 16, 17-year-olds. They can only work so many hours, they have to go to school.
Right.
Yeah.
Comparatively, Allen County does not have a lot of opportunities. It's not a huge number of fast food places or retail places, unless you count the $15 stores in Allen County, which is ridiculous. But
it's almost like it started there or something.
Well, and weightedly, a lot of them only hire at 18 now. So I don't know, you don't know how many of those are 16 and 17 and how many are 18, like you just don't know.
And I would also say, and just from personal note, Allen County is a more rural community and a lot of that age group is working on family farms. There will be a huge number of them that helps dad with cattle, raising tobacco and stuff like that, that will not fall in that category. So it's kind of camouflaged a little bit.
Yeah. And I wondered when Brittany was gonna speak up, because I knew she was an Allen County resident too, and she's, look at her comment there about 3 kids, 16 and 19 years old, and you do have to be 18 to work for Dollar General.
Yeah, that's right.
So, yeah.
Which is unfortunate because there's a lot of studies that suggest that your work ethic is developed as a teenager.
Also,
Yeah. if
I
you
would
don't
say,
you're an adult, then you've missed an opportunity.
Oh, go ahead, Brittany.
sorry, my 16-year-old is working with OVR and just got on at McDonald's, and he's doing virtual school. But even though he's doing virtual school, he still isn't allowed to work during the day. He can't work because of, I guess, child labor laws, and McDonald's, they won't even let him go into work until 4 o'clock once school starts. So he's doing, even though he's doing virtual work at home, he's not going by the school schedule. He still can't go to work until 4 o'clock, and he still will only be allowed to have 20 hours a week.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah, so you have to figure out the cost of, is it worth doing 20 hours a week at that age? Yeah.
And then you also have to think about, I mean, you have a couple of the factories you've got, which has a couple of the industries have some strict criminal background rules. You've got Smuckers, you've got Halston, you have a few of those places which hire a lot of people, but then the fast food restaurants, I think it was already mentioned, they're tapping into that 20 to 24-year-old market too. And there's really just nothing there for these kids unless they have transportation into Bowling Green or Glasgow.
Now, we should say too, that this is residents, but it doesn't mean they work in the county that we're pulling the data. So these could be kids or any age that are driving out of the county to go to work. There's other ways that Josh can access that data to show, and vice versa, people driving into Allen County to go to work. But this is just showing residents. It's not showing the location of their work is in Allen County.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And whenever we look at those commuting patterns, the biggest culprit is always like Warren County is stealing so many of your people, like constantly. And people do come in from Warren County, but they are like really kind of taking in from a lot of the 9 counties about them. Yeah.
Let's go on through some other things here.
Yeah. But so that kind of discussion is that's exactly what we want to like generate through showing the data and everything, is taking a closer look and examining like what is actually like happening here in our county. And then we can get some sort of like key takeaways from the data to even like refine that stuff a little bit more and start getting into pockets. So this is still Allen County. There's almost 12,000 prime working age residents. So people who are 20 to 64, people work outside of that range, but from 20 to 64, you're kind of like expected to be at work. About 3,500 people aren't working, and nearly 1,500 of those 35 are between 45 and 59, and that's Gen X. 633 of the 3,500 don't have a high school diploma or equivalent. And then we can kind of like do some goal setting, compare that the Allen County workforce participation rate is 57.5%. The US, if we wanted to just try and match that, is at 63.6. So we know we have to add almost 1,000 people into the workforce to be able to match the United States in Allen County. And then there are 254 about, that's really a big ballpark kind of deal. But close to 254 jobs that are open in Allen County that need filling. So does that kind of like refine it a little bit more and like help you to think about the workforce challenges and like goal setting in a different way? Or is that interesting, boring?
I would say is the 254 needed in that particular case, is that reasonable pay, are they minimum wage paying jobs or are they
Yeah.
substantial paying jobs?
It's all jobs, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
That's a
all
total.
jobs. We break that down a lot and a lot of them are part-time and a lot of them are below 15 an hour. So it,
About 25% will be part-time, about 58% will be $15 below an hour.
yeah, so it's, yeah, no, that's a good point. Like breaking that down, it's a lot of people don't want those jobs for sure.
And we should also say the source of knowing the open jobs is a data bank that looks at ads. And so there could be one nursing job ad that needs 10 nurses, and there could be the same one nursing job that's promoted in 10 counties or 10 different, things.
Right.
But some of those are like, we're hearing more and more job seekers, I'm sure you guys are too, like, I think these employers are just ghosting people, right? They just keep positions open all the time and they're not really hiring for them. They're just keeping them posted. So our database, the database thing we're accessing doesn't know any different. If it's a real job that currently needs to be filled or not, we're just assuming because it's posted that it is. So it's, again, very much a rough estimate.
Yeah. It's probably not gonna be off by like hundreds, but it'll be, that number is gonna be off by something. I can almost guarantee that it's not exactly 200.
I always say, it's like trying to count fish in the sea.
Yeah.
Right.
Some are being born, some are dying, some are getting eaten, some are moving out to the ocean, some are coming in from the ocean. It's
Yeah.
it's your best guess.
So on that, did we take out, I'm just curious, thank you. So that I know what or maybe I can make sense of what I'm trying to ask here. So we're saying that there are 3,500 people who are not working.
Yes.
Okay, on this slide. And nearly 15 are between 1,500 are between 45 and 59. So 3,500 are not working. Can you go back one more slide for me? So 2033 is the population with disabilities, right? And the population not in the workforce is 1,306. So are we taking that 1,306 people into account on that number on the next slide?
Yes.
Did I make sense? I'm just asking that.
Yeah, those 1,300 people are included in that 3,500.
They are,
Yes.
okay, so possibly 1,300 of them have a disability where they could not work.
That's,
Well,
yeah,
could not work.
Right.
Because you can work with a disability.
Right, it depends on the severity, but yes.
But as we get into these numbers, very few people with a disability do choose to work. Because you're almost conditioned not to, right? It takes you at least a year, if not 2 years, to get your disability. You're advised right from the start, do not work. If you want your disability to come through, do not work. So by the time you get it, we're working for 2 years.
Right. So you have a gap.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And
Gap, but then
are scared of losing your benefit.
we don't want to do anything right. But the reality is, and this is where OVR has a lot of expertise. If somebody with a disability goes and sees an OVR benefits counselor, they can do a customized analysis on you and determine whether you can work, and if so, up to what amount you can work for.
Very familiar, yes.
So that's where I think we have a lot of work to do just to get the word out about that. Can we get more people with disability back into the workforce?
Yeah, and because and we know it is possible because like that thing I was talking about comparing workforce rates between the United States and these counties.
Yes.
The United States generally has a higher rate of disabled people working than the counties in our region. So we have proportionately more people with a disability and they work proportionately less than the average population in the United States. And a lot of that probably comes down to like all the stuff that John was talking about, and then probably limited access to healthcare. It makes it a lot easier, kind of like as you're getting a little bit older, maybe you haven't seen a doctor in a really long time, your odds of picking up a disability are going to get decently high.
Well, I mean, we're known in Kentucky for like we rank like, I want to say 47th out of 50 and in sickness within our, like, we're some of our unhealthiest, right?
We also
for various reasons, we don't have to elaborate on, but you know, that kind of ties in with that as well.
We also have more people in their mid-40s applying for disability at a much higher rate than nationally.
Sure.
It's almost like baked into our DNA. Oh, I'm 45, it's time to go apply for disability.
Right.
And you also have being uncomfortably close to that last column there of 60 to 64. You have a lot of people that's looking at retirement.
Oh, yeah.
That maybe, according to those guidelines, they can work, maybe should be working, but no.
But yeah, but they're done. And they say like, well, my grandpa got out at this time and my dad got out. Now it's my turn. I'm done. And that generational thing kind of like seeps down, you know?
Josh, we have a few people talking
Yeah.
online about transportation being an issue. Is transportation one of the things that the ACS
Yes.
asks and captures?
So yeah, in like just this kind of like basic data at the county level, we can look at what households have access to a vehicle, I'm pretty sure. Once we get into the micro data stuff, there's probably a little bit more that we can do with that. I haven't looked into it a lot, but I do know that it's definitely possible for us to look at transportation. And that's certainly an issue.
Yeah.
You know, what's interesting, every time we do this stuff, what I think about is if you narrow down layered, now you just found your cousin, right? Everybody's got a relative that they know is not working. It's brother or parent or something like that, right? Like, and we don't have access to personally identifiable information, and that will never be provided by the American Community Survey, but we are gonna, we're gonna transition here in a moment as to why it's important to kind of know this, and so I think that's gonna lead into the qualitative part. I'll do this screen real quick, Josh, and then I'll toss it back to you. So what we can know is at the top here, we would have what we would call the primary pockets. That's where we can divide people by age group, like you saw on the raw data screen. But then you have those secondary pockets, which could encompass any of the ages, right? So people that have a criminal background or in recovery, people that have a disability, like we said, veterans, and then the immigrants and refugees, new Americans. These have been all pockets that us or other service providers in the workforce system are aiming to serve. But for Allen County, this is what we do when we present the county presentations, is we're like, okay, so let's let you pick on one. And then their grouping, Gen X, had a lot of people that were not working. So again, we go back to this slide, 1,400 people roughly are Gen X. So what do we know about Gen X? And then Josh, you can share the information. This is getting again into the qualitative factors going on.
Yeah. How many Gen X people are here? I know Brian is.
And technically Gen X is, I think, 42 and up, but we're just trying to kind of give a little bit of a rough,
Yeah.
Some of us are still baby
Gotcha. So how are you guys in the workforce? Like, what do you think you behave like? Trying not to look at all the bullets on the screen of the research that's been done, but or looking and comparing, but how do you guys act at work?
Tyrannical.
Are you talking like how we would describe, we call it work ethic? Even though that's how we behave, even though we would describe it as how you should act.
Right, every generation lives in that kind of ethnocentric, this is how everybody else should be.
Right.
Yeah.
And you could say it's maturity to act like a boomer, or you could say, I'm never gonna be like my parents and look at work the way they did, right? And that's what we're trying to get employers to recognize is boomerism is not the goal. If you are hoping for that, you're just trying to turn square pegs in the round holes, right?
My kids put it, you raised me to be successful in a world that no longer exists.
Wow.
Feel that.
Well, and I think on the other side of that coin is that we're struggling with a changing workplace. It's happening very quickly.
Yeah.
And some of us, I'll speak for myself, like marketing, like I'm like, it's way over my head now. And I can't keep up.
And one of the big things that we kind of like look at is, especially when we look at Gen X, is like the amount of changes Gen X has had to go through in their lives. Like the internet boom kind of like becoming a whole thing and just like adapting to a lot of stuff. So you'll see we've got like adapt well to change, and it's kind of just because you were forced to. But yeah, so you can take kind of like all these things and really understand who these Gen X people are, and kind of like a sneak peek of like later's little so what thing. Like if you were trying to like make an ad to pick up a lot of these Gen X people, you might be able to start tailoring it to a lot of this stuff.
A lot of it aims at retention too, so that last bullet point, well, the last three, or I'll say the third from the bottom and the bottom one, I mean, more eager to advance. I found that research that among all the generations, Gen X would say, I'm looking for, upward mobility. So if you're just having an entry level job and expecting them to stay that and not talking to them about upward mobility, you are going to lose them, or you're not going to get them in the first place.
Yeah.
And then anticipating working past 65 years old. So that means the oldest Gen X are almost maybe 60. So they still got some gas in the tank, but if you're 45, you might have somebody for 20 years. And I would say that I'd be one of the Gen X that would say 65 means nothing almost to me at this point. I have no guarantee of anything being there at 65 or having amassed enough to live off of. And I think that's current for today's 65-year-old. So how's it going to look in 15 to 20 years? So that's what's difficult. So like, yeah, I'm going to be in the workforce for a long time. So if you get me and keep me, I could be very loyal to the company or very loyal to work with people. So again, this is all leading to kind of the so what's going to come next, I'm sorry, but the micro data. So this is the newest thing. We haven't quite done this with each of the counties yet, but we just learned how to take the ACS data tables and add layers on top of layers. And so we can only do it, as Josh said, in the 100,000 population pocket. So Warren is its own pocket, and all of the other 9 counties are another pocket that we can look at. But for today's activity, we just wanted to look at people with a disability in Warren County, and we'll stay with the theme of Gen X. So what do you notice looking at the data here? I've kind of put it in yellow already. So people with a disability have a certain percentage, whether that's good or bad, of the total population that are working and not working, but they're only represented by less than 8% in the Gen X workforce. So as much as John was saying a minute ago, they're just not working. It's particularly true for Gen X.
I mean, I certainly understand, I'm very familiar with both rehab, like John was talking about, but I do think about the individuals who might have terminal needs or who legitimately cannot work. So there's still going to be a percentage of those folks with disability that legitimately cannot work. Right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, just kind of taking that into consideration, because yes, there are a lot of folks with disability who can work every day and want to work every day, or, trying to figure out how they can work,
Absolutely. Counterpoint, the number one disability that's out there is standing walking for 4 hours. So that, what number that is, I don't know. Can we target that? Can employers make accommodations for somebody that has a standing walking 4-hour limitation?
Yes.
How has the definition of disability changed over the years? I mean, I see a lot on that list that certainly weren't there.
I think it's certainly expanded over the years.
Well, I will say 2 things really quickly. Is you mentioned 4 hours. In the last couple of jobs that I've had in industry, they were 12-hour jobs, standing on concrete, required steel-toed shoes. And I'm going to be honest with you, there's a lot of people that can't and won't do it. In regards to that, and the industry, a lot of industry standards percentages, I would say, has gone to some form of extended hours. It's hard to find an 8-hour shift, let alone 4 standing. It's usually 12, and usually 3 and 4 days consecutively that's required at a minimum. So a lot of people that would move from that, myself included, because that was not something that physically was good for me physically. The other thing was I lost my train of thought. That's enough.
Well, this is why we want to have this conversation with employers. Like the whole conversation with employers is, once you understand the numbers, Okay, now what accommodations can you make in your workplace? And some can, some manufacturers cannot change. You know, concrete floors or 10-hour, 12-hour shifts, but some can, or can three people make up one full-time role? I mean, that only the employer can answer that question, but we want to ask that question to them.
Right.
To think.
Because
about
they
it.
don't, I mean.
Right, they're so busy, they don't stop and think about those things. That's what this whole thing is about. Like, here's the numbers. We have the people,
Right.
Can we get them back?
And if we were looking at Warren County, Gen Xers not working, we could say about half of them have a disability. Now what do we do? Yeah, now what do we do? So this goes into that's nice, Josh, but what's the point?
Yeah. And then I'll just add one more thing, just about the micro data in general. We're not the first people to want like county level specific stuff.
Sure.
So luckily, there's a census data office in Missouri that's like developed some tools to be able to, with a lot of error, kind of like help that data into getting down to the county level. They're very hard to use and I have not learned them quite yet, but I have ChatGPT and willpower. So that's all you need in life. So hopefully soon we'll be able to get kind of that nitty gritty down in here. But yeah, like that's all well and cool. We looked at the numbers. Here's a cookie and a gold star, but we can actually use them. Like there is a point to all this. So we've kind of started getting into this, like it informs a lot of our decisions in building our workforces. You mentioned this already, a lot of this is just marketing. Like if you know exactly all of the pockets that are around and how they behave and what they respond to, you can make 4 different flyers for different positions and probably bring in a lot of these pockets like way more efficiently and easily than if you just had one catch-all that you kind of threw out into the void. But yeah, using like kind of thinking back to that Warren County micro data sample there, and keeping in mind we can have like a lot of different demographics that we throw into a table like that. What are some ways that you guys think you can use data like this?
So if we were able to say how many people had a disability, how many people by age range don't have a high school diploma, how many people by age range have transportation issues, what are you and your program going to do with that data?
I think it's all about programming and addressing those issues, right? Obviously, if we could fix transportation, we'd all probably be millionaires on board and everywhere else, right? Because I think transportation is a barrier that is being discussed at every workforce table across the U.S., which kind of amazes me. I mean, I've been in meetings at the national level with others in huge cities, and they're all saying, we have transportation issues. I mean, it's the same there as it is here, which kind of amazes me, really. Because they have a way different system, even than what, way better than what we have in our area. So, I mean, I think that's just a workforce issue in general. But yeah, I mean, I think JODA understanding that demographic would be very important, because what could we do to design programs around those individuals without that high school diploma? How could we target that?
Yeah.
If Allen County has higher numbers than Butler County over there with Amy, right? Then how can we adjust the programming? And same with the like OBR with those with the disabilities, right? I mean, if they're looking at this data, then they can say, okay, yeah, let's see what we can do. And then I think too, the conversation with the employers, because I think for years, maybe I'm being a little ugly, but I mean, employers have gotten so used to having such a flooded market that this is what we're doing, this is how we're doing it, and this is how we've always done it, and this is how we're going to keep doing it. But the issue lies in that they're finding they can't do that anymore, right? And so adjusting work hours, different ways that they're recruiting people, who they're recruiting, which I think we've come a long way, like with criminal history, for years. There are so many companies that were like, we're not hiring anybody with criminal history, period. And they found that doesn't work because they're missing out. So now they've adjusted. So I think we've come I think we've moved the lever on it, but I think there's still a long way that, like he was saying, can we take 3 part-time people to make up that one position? You know, that'll help fill the company gap, but it'll also employ 3 people, right? I mean, I think employers need to, and I think a lot of our employers are doing that right now. I think they're getting creative about, you know, the way they're, you know, I think COVID helped that along in some instances too. They had to get creative, right? Like remote work, think about remote work before COVID, there really wasn't a lot of remote work, right? And then we found out that during COVID, we could get along and we could do our jobs and, you know, we can still get good things done. And, you know, so I think across the board, I think that will help with some of this stuff if we can drill down into it some more. I don't know if that makes sense. Sorry, I didn't mean to get going to it.
Yeah.
But
I just, no, it's good stuff. Brian, when we went to Allen County, childcare, I mean, you just wanna share what we learned about childcare in Allen County?
Well, so, you know, uncovering the data, the disability thing kept emerging in every county. So we started with Butler County, and that's when we first kind of keyed in, and I started approaching Roxana and people on her team, like who are the providers, how many people are getting served each year. And it's in some ways very intentionally low, the amount of people, because it's a very intentional process on how you support people with the supported program models that are there. And I learned all about that, and Roxana's team's been great to share all of that. But yeah, the childcare thing has obviously come up too. So Josh and I met with the lady that runs Head Start, the Head Start programs, and the migrant Head Start programs for Community Action, Michelle Cutler. And what she told us was, you know, they struggle with staff themselves. So they have some capacity in some counties, they have space, they don't have staff. So they need 2 staff, they need a head person and a support person. And they can do, I think it's like 20 kids, I want to say, a classroom, something like that. And so when they don't have either of those 2, they can't turn that on. But in Allen County, they have enough staff, they don't have enough people signing up. And it's the only county where that's happening at. And it's really been more affected since COVID. And the restrictions have gone away, that they have space. So they're having to reassign staff to different things. So they're turning on some like infant toddler pilot programs and different things like that, because they're, you know, typically there's a certain age where you start in Head Start, but there's always still a need for infant care. And so they're starting to try to dabble in that. But in Allen County, we were there, and some of the people in the room knew that about Allen County. Oh yeah, we know that. So it's interesting that, like, let's say we solve transportation in Allen County and people still aren't using it. You know, like that's kind of the equivalent. Childcare is available, they're just not using it. So we still have to figure out how to incentivize people or let them know childcare is available. If they say, I don't have childcare, actually you do in Allen County.
Right.
So now that doesn't mean it's convenient, and that doesn't mean you can get to it, but it's available. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you know, and then you have to look at the limited, like, daytime jobs are, you know, because Head Start doesn't run at night either, so that limits that's another one of those barriers that we've all been talking about forever, and we just can't.
Yeah,
I think they close up at like 5.
Yeah,
So
They charge you by the minute in some
Yeah.
cases,
Yeah,
for
I think
every
it's
minute
good.
you're late, there's a fee.
Yeah.
So if you're working like fast food and then, you know, you're trying to close and you're gonna be 30 minutes off every time.
so I know we've hit our hour, and I want to be cognizant of everybody's time, but Josh does have a gift for everybody.
Yes.
And so I'm going to get out of the full screen mode and put this in the chat. If you have signed up in the room, we can email this to you, but for those of you guys that are on Zoom, I'm going to put a couple of resources in the chat. So Josh, tell us what you're sharing.
Yes, so if you remember earlier in the presentation, I mentioned all of that county level data with the demographics, and I said that stuff is really easy to pull. It is, and so I have. So what we've done there is that is a big old Google Doc, and it has the 10 county region as a conglomerate with all of those demographics, and it shows the workforce participation rates for each little thing that we've cut up. And then there are tabs in that sheet where you can look at your own specific county as well to see all of those demographics. And that also has a little fun color-coded columns that compares your county's workforce participation rates to Kentucky as a whole and the United States as a whole. So if you look that over and everything, and it is very useful, good. And if you have more questions, we have another thing.
Yes.
Yes.
I just put this in the chat as well.
Yes, so this is a, if you're sitting there and you're like, well, that's all cool if I live in Allen County and memorized everything on the slide. But what about everyone else? So here's a little data request form. So if you go in there, you can fill out this form about like what sort of questions you have for data, and what you need it for and when you need it by, and it'll send me an email. And I can get back to you and try and answer your data related questions, do a little bit of research for everyone. Please be sure to give me time to do that. I do have other things I'm doing generally.
Yeah, if your grant is due that day, don't contact Josh. It's already too late. And that might be why you need data is for a grant. but-
Exactly. And the more specific you are about like what you need and why you need it, it'll be a lot easier. And then I might reach out with more questions with it. But yeah, that's a fun little like start disseminating information thing.
All right, well, let's thank Josh for his time. So we do have, the next meeting will be the first Thursday of September, which happens to be the 7th. And we are having that meeting be up for grabs. So, and Josh, I will put your email also.
Yes.
In the chat. So if you have, if anybody wants to volunteer, want to take a look at it, I will say we do make it about workforce. We do make it about employment and opportunities like that. So if we don't have a volunteer today, or somebody doesn't ping somebody, or let me or Duranda know, then we will move forward and plan as we normally do, because we value your time. We want to get important topics in front of you. Did you guys like this? Did you enjoy it? Yeah, seems like we could talk longer, right? And this is what's happening when we get in front of employers for 2 hours. They're like, oh, we could have been, like, we needed more time, we needed more data. And we're like, listen, it's hard to ask you guys to get to something for half a day or a day in the past. But now that we've whetted your appetite, we want to keep talking. And John would also say, I'll say this on his behalf, that if a company would like a detailed data report and some analytics, it takes a lot more into consideration. That would be a fee-based thing, but we would be willing to do that also. So we're asking the participants that come to these if they're interested in something like that. Some of them have been. We have presented at one company. It was actually operating in 3 counties. And we were able to investigate and look at things. And one thing we found was that they were blowing through a lot of 20-year-olds. So they had a lot of people 20 years old that they were hiring, and the average amount of time that they were leaving was 6 weeks. So they probably took them 0 to 90, as you were saying there, Kevin, and overtime all the time, maybe. But we were saying you need to, a 6 month checkup, you've already lost them. 6 weeks, you're probably losing them. You need to have a check-in probably 6 days in, or every couple of weeks, to make sure that you at least would have more notice if they're leaving, but maybe you could course correct if you're burning through them. So that's the level that kind of gets into when we start doing this analysis. So, and then we talk about factors that 20-year-olds are looking for, and there are some in the room. If you want to talk to them after the meeting and find out why they've got people and buddies they know not working, you could. But that's the thing. Everybody's a little bit different, and I've explained this like Goldilocks with the porridge. She has her preferences on porridge and beds and chairs, and everybody else does. We each do, but we cannot just expect everybody to behave the same. So. All right, but yeah, we hope this is helpful, even if you guys are in an employment situation to hire people, that you can understand this and talk about it with your team. So, all right, with that, I think we're finished for the day. So thank you all. Stay safe out there. Bye, everyone.